Welcome to B2B SaaS Marketing Podcast by Concurrent. Our guest today has written 11 books on marketing, and the core of every book he writes is a problem marketers are trying to solve. His latest one, Audacious, that is how humans win in an AI marketing world, hit number one in marketing category on Amazon, just like 5 of his previous books did. He holds 7 patents, teaches at Rutgers University, and is a keynote speaker who has taken the stage in more than 50 countries. For every marketer, he's a dream guest. Please welcome Mark Schaefer. Hi, Mark. How are you?
How do I pronounce your name correctly?
Aditi. It's Aditi.
Aditi. Aditi. Okay, great.
Mark, I really can't believe that we are in the same room today. Honestly, I had zero expectation that you would accept my request.
Huh.
But then this reminds me of Steve Jobs, who used to occasionally reply to customers, employees, journalists. Is it being audacious of you to accept my request?
I suppose in a way, because some people have said to me, Mark, what really makes you stand out is that you seem so accessible and friendly. And I'm sort of sad that that makes me stand out, that someone who's kind stands out. So maybe kindness is audacity today. I don't know.
Standing out reminds me of the cover of your book. It is the first time I saw a book having cover as a QR code.
Yeah,
How did you come
I
up with
think
that
it's the
idea?
first time. I think it's the first time it's been done. Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea, Mark?
Well, I so the original idea was, I just had this idea of how do we combine technology and use it in different ways, and I knew that nobody had done something like that before, and I had a small window because once I did it, I figured other people would do it. So I had this idea of creating the QR code. And the original idea was the QR code would like make you enter into like another world or something, a portal that could lead to, new adventures or something, new discoveries. That was too complicated. And so it was really pretty easy to upload my book into AI and have AI generate different art from the book. I worked with an agency, and they, you know, uh, honestly, the abstract images that they came up with probably wouldn't have been my first choice, but they were insistent on it. They thought it was really cool. They thought it was really different. So I deferred to their expertise. So we just worked together, and that's how it came to be.
Great, great. Also, Mark, I have a confession to make. I don't read books. So I want to tell you the story of how I discovered you.
Okay.
I first heard about you from the CMO of Gamma. She was a guest on AHRF's podcast. She mentioned your book and she told how she has been using your framework of disrupting either the message or the medium or the messenger and how it has worked for Gamma. And that made me curious to learn more about you. And the next time I was on my bike ride on Apple Podcast, I just searched for Audacious. And your guest appearance on Business of Marketing podcast came up and I started listening to you. And oh boy, when I was listening to you, Mark, for that 1.5 hours, my mind was rushing with ideas. It was a different kind of adrenaline rush that I had.
Ah,
And when I was listening to your stories, one of the stories you had mentioned in that podcast was about Elf Cosmetics, that how they used the Roblox game to capture the attention of their customers. I was just thinking, I have always envied how B2C marketing is so interesting and we don't get to see so much in B2B SaaS. Although the things are changing, and our today's interview is primarily focused on how B2B SaaS brands can win in this AI marketing world,
good.
Mark.
So are you based in Singapore?
Yeah. I'm based in Singapore, Mark, and currently I'm on family vacation in Hong Kong. I
Right, I
have
saw
come
your
here.
email about all the
Yeah,
wonderful curiosities you saw there.
yeah. And today, Mark, when we had gone to visit Victoria Prison, on the way, I saw an art gallery, and the paintings were like very different in terms of the usage of material, the applique work they had done. But you know what was the most exciting thing about the artist's work? It was her story. So the artist goes by the name Josephine, and some time ago, like, she lost a loved one to four bullets. And she's also a PhD researcher. She's a diver. And how she has connected every aspect of her life to reflect on geopolitical tensions in her work. The painting that I specifically saw today, it was showing the Strait of Hamas. It was showing a couple of hands on top as if they are the puppeteers, and the things that are happening in the sea. So, sea she had depicted using the empty bullet shells. And then there was red suede showing the red soil. And how the aquatic life over there is sort of suffering for no reason. And
Yeah,
it was absolutely beautiful, Mark.
yeah.
And then I also saw your art gallery wherein you have your watercolor paintings. And you have mentioned somewhere that you use Midjourney to do the first draft, and then you sort of take inspiration from there to create yours. But I feel that many B2B SaaS brands do not have a real story, Mark. So how do they go about, like, should they actually create a story?
There is a difference between B2B marketing and B2C marketing. But really, in terms of what gets through to people, what cuts through the noise, it's the same. People are people, and they're motivated by many of the same things. They're driven by many of the same emotions, and sometimes they're not completely rational in their decisions. Sometimes the story really makes a difference. I think that in many cases in our human lives, we buy the story. That's really what connects us, in an emotional way. That's what connects us to brands. And I think it's a challenge for large companies. I've been writing a lot about this. How do we stand out in this pandemic of dull when AI is creating so much of the content today? And for me, it's not really intimidating. It's not really a challenge because I can still tell my stories. I can still, create a narrative and experience that is unique to me. And I think in the future, that human touch is going to be a luxury. We're going to over index on AI. And so when people know that it's real, when people knows there's a person behind it, it's going to make a difference. I think in some ways, that's why I think this moment really favors small to medium-sized companies because you don't have the decades of brand equity. You don't have the legal department that's going to correct everything that you do. And if you see the companies that are creating the most audacious ideas right now, they are normally smaller companies willing to take a risk.
Right, Mark. And somewhere in the interview, like as powerful quote as you mentioned, pandemic of dull, I read that we need to find the humanity that AI cannot touch. So how do we go about it? Like,
Yeah. Well, I did a really interesting experiment last week, and it actually changed my mind about some things with the help of AI. So, one of the things I've been writing about is that I think no matter what happens in this AI era, that art will persist. And I believe that's true. We will always like our favorite novelist, our favorite, now that you listen to my book, maybe I'm one of, your favorites that no matter what happens with AI, I'm still a human being you connect with. But we'll love our favorite musicians, right? And we'll love our favorite podcasters and YouTubers. And so I put this idea into AI and I did this experiment where I interviewed a famous author a few years ago. He wrote the book on Steve Jobs and he wrote the book on Elon Musk and he wrote the book on Leonardo da Vinci. And I said, what creates a genius? What makes a genius? He said two things. One, insatiable curiosity. And number two, connecting the dots in a new way. So I figured that's interesting because humans, I mean, AI isn't curious. We've got to upload our curiosity to AI, we've got to create the dots for AI to connect. But AI is really good at patterns, right? Pattern recognition. So I thought, well, what if we combine human creativity and curiosity with AI pattern recognition? Could that make me a genius? So I put this idea in there about art. And you had mentioned, the human aspect. And AI challenged me on this and said, AI can mimic human emotions really well. I mean, AI can show up with a personality like a human personality really well. He said, "What? But I almost said he, right? I mean, I guess it's a he. Is my chat GPT a he or she? I don't know, but I just called it a he. Actually, it was Claude that I used, and Claude said, "What you're missing here is the risk." And that is really the theme of the Audacious book, isn't it? It's the stake that you have. It's like when everybody else in your industry has done the same thing year after year after year after year after year, and that's the safe thing to do, and nobody wants to rock the boat. It's the risk. It's putting a stake in the ground and saying, I'm going to do something different. And so Claude helped me kind of connect the dots in a new way and then put a new name to something I've been writing about for a long time, but it's absolutely correct.
Interesting, Mark. Now, let's say I feel as human, if I'm not curious by nature, how do I converse with AI in a way that whatever I'm trying to do, it actually creates something audacious? The second thing you mentioned was connecting the dots in a new way.
Yeah.
So let's say, would it be something like maybe I bring an idea of, let's say, these Pokemon cards. Now, today, when I was in the market, my son told that the most expensive Pokemon card is in millions of dollars. I
Oh, you're
was
kidding.
amazed. Why?
My gosh, that doesn't
Why would someone pay so much for that printed card? Now, let's say that's one dot we are trying to connect.
yeah, yeah,
Then how about you put something in this recipe? Then I try to put something again. And then we give this whole thing as a mix to AI. And
yeah.
then do you think
But
it
I
can?
think so. I mean, I think you're really onto something here, and I think maybe you're more curious than you give yourself credit for. So I think that's an interesting idea. Is if you wrote me an email saying, "Oh, Mark, I'm on this adventure in China, and I saw this that amazed me. I saw this that amazed me. I saw this that amazed me." It's so interesting. It's so creative. I just wanted to share that with you. Well, how do you use AI to sort of build on that? And so, one idea might be like I created a custom GPT. It's called the MarkBot. So I uploaded all my books and all my blog posts and all my speeches and all my classes and basically everything I've done into a custom GPT. And I also added like my philosophy and my values and hopefully my kindness, and people love it. And people love it, right? And so you can sort of like, if you have a question, you can kind of like go in there and get an idea of what I would say about it. Actually, I think in many ways it's better than me. It comes up with answers I never would have come up with before. But you could create a custom GPT, or you can do the same thing in Claude, and you can fill it with like everything about your marketing, your business, your marketing philosophy, your challenges. You could create a custom GPT that represents your customers. You could add research that you've done about your customers. And then let's say you're excited by this Pokemon idea, right? Because it's colorful and then there's scarcity and it's collectible. And what if you created this bot about your, with everything about your business and your customers, and you said, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to create a SaaS marketing program that's like Pokemon cards. Lay it out for me." And it might be terrible, or it might give you, it might give you 10 ideas, and maybe 9 of them are terrible, but maybe one, and that's the way it usually works for me, is if I, like, go into, like, a brainstorming thing with one of the AI platforms, most of the ideas aren't really that good, but there might be one that makes you go, "No, wait a minute. I have never really thought about it that way before." So I think that is a way we can blend the human observations and the human curiosity with connecting dots and maybe creating something new.
Mark, you might be surprised to know this, but before coming in the interview, I actually spoke to MarkBot. And
How did it
so,
go?
first, it was amazing. I was mind blown. Let me tell you what I did. So,
Okay.
we lead marketing for one of the B2B SaaS clients. They are into patent tech. So, what I did was I told MarkBot that we have done all the foundational work. We have written like listicles, we have written use cases, we have done product tools, everything. What could be an audacious idea for this patent tech? So, the couple of ideas it gave were amazing. One was,
Good.
yeah, so one was the patent graveyard. It mentioned that many companies abandon ideas, abandon patents, and maybe you can come up with some sort of study and say how millions got wasted and how what they could have done differently or things like that. The second idea it gave was even more amazing. The second idea was hidden inventors build something it mentioned, and in that it said that instead of doing a case study on how Triangle IP helped an enterprise manage the patterns and ideas, you change the narrative. Find the inventor who changed the product line forever and make them the hero, share their story. And it was like a brilliant idea to me. And it was different from what we were doing. So,
Yeah, good.
in
So
fact,
you're already testing it. You're already trying that. Yeah. That's great.
I was about to ask you. So many B2B SaaS brands have created these AI chatbots, but most are for, just answering the frequently asked questions that they get.
Sure,
But
sure.
your MarkBot is different. And how did you come up with that? Is it just your love for technology again?
No, it's really for my love for students and people who are urgent to learn. I think where I get the most joy in my life right now is teaching and mentoring others. And one of the things that's been frustrating is that is very time consuming. And I've always struggled with this idea of how do you scale one-to-one mentoring? And so this MarkBot was like just an experiment to say, look, this gives anybody anywhere a chance to talk to me and it's free. I don't know who uses it. I don't know what questions they ask. There's no monetization strategy behind it. It's literally just, an experiment to see if I can scale mentoring. And like I said, I get no feedback. The only feedback you get from ChatGPT is like once it's used like 1,000 times, it's like stops there. It says it's been used over 1,000 times. So that's all I know. It's been used over 1,000 times. I get comments from people like you all the time. I was interviewed on a podcast last week and the guy said, I use MarkBot, several times a week. It is my go-to, LLM. And it was funny because like when I was creating the MarkBot, I went in to the MarkBot and I said, is this good? How can I make it better? What is missing? How can I make it better? And what it came back and said, you have created one of the greatest marketing resources on the web here. You have created something singularly unique. And I thought, wow, AI, it's supposed to make you feel good, right? And I went back to it and I said, wait a minute, what makes you say that? Give me the evidence. So it actually gave me a chart of different sort of marketing related LLMs and says, this is what you can do. This is what they can do. You're the best. So I thought, well, okay, not completely sure I believe it, but I do believe the feedback I get from people like you who are using it, that it really is something cool. One person, she said I felt like it was like I was talking to you, and I started telling and it was like trying to really sort of encourage me, and I got emotional because I felt like I was talking to you. She said I wanted. She said it said at the end, it told me, "It sounds like you need a hug." It made me cry. And that might be a world first. MarkBot made someone cry tears of joy.
But I really want to compliment you, Mark. And it again reflects on your kindness that you mentioned that one to one mentoring is not scalable. And that's why you created MarkBot. I think it's brilliant. We asked it one more question, but before I tell you about that question, I have something to ask. So, have you recently opened any cold email you got from a B2B SaaS brand?
Any what?
Any email that came to you from a B2B SaaS brand? Like we do cold reach outs, Mark?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I always open it if it's someone that I know. I always open it if it's someone who's maybe I don't even know them, but if I recognize them because maybe they leave a comment on LinkedIn or something like that, I'll open it up. If it's someone that I know, if it's a friend, I'll always help them and respond. But yeah, I get deluged with emails. I mean, if it looks like a legitimate company trying to introduce some product, I'll at least, open it and read the first couple sentences.
I think you're too kind, Mark. We so
Unless it goes
one
into
of our
spam.
clients.
If it goes into spam, then which is most of it.
Yeah. So, but across the industry in B2B SaaS, these cold emails are not really working anymore as such
Yeah,
because people are using AI and they are using AI agents and the
yeah.
kind of value it should offer is not there. So we asked MarkBot again, what could someone do differently to get a response on a cold email? And again, it gave a brilliant answer. You know
Yeah.
what it said?
I'd be really interested to know what it is because I do have an answer in my mind. So what did it say?
Okay, so we can later tally if you and them
Yeah.
think alike. So normally when people are doing cold email, they would research the person and tell something about them. The MarkBot says it should not be about the person what they know. It should be more about an insight that they do not know. That's what will get them interested in talking to you. That's what MarkBot said.
Well,
Is your answer different?
I think that's good. I'd agree with that. But I think one of the things that I talk about is you can't confuse personalized versus personal. So when I get an email and it's obviously a boilerplate template mass market email, just because it has my name on it doesn't mean it's personal. You might think that's personalized, but it's not. I mean, so it's sort of weird that now that you have the ability to put someone's name on it, and sometimes maybe it'll say, "Oh, I just read your recent blog post," which you know is false. I mean, in some ways, personalized is impersonal. Personalized depresses the open rate because you know it's fake. It's just a signal, it's a flag that it's fake. So now let's go back to say, what are the emails that I've opened? So I got a message. Now, it wasn't an email, but it was a message from a guy on LinkedIn. This is a guy, he's in B2B SaaS marketing, and he sent me a message on LinkedIn. He's followed me forever. He comments on my posts on LinkedIn all the time. And he said, "Hey, I've created this thing. We have this new software. Can you take a look at it and let me know what you think?" And I actually did a pretty detailed analysis of it. I tried it out. And so it was more than opening up. I actually committed to it. I devoted my time and attention to it. And that's because his approach to me was personal. It wasn't personalized, it was personal. He had built up this equity with me over years just by showing up, right? So, I mean, you and
Right,
I have an equity now, right? I mean, you
right.
sent me a message. You said, "I really loved your book." You wrote a really nice post on LinkedIn about it. You invited me to your podcast. If I get an email from you, I'm going to say, "Oh, here's what this, I'm glad to hear from her. What does she have to say today?" Right? So because when you send something to me, it's personal. You've earned it.
Very interesting, Mark. Now, that's one good reason that they have earned it and then you opened. Now, many a times it may happen that because you are trying to reach out to many people,
Yes. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
do not have that, resources to do the personalization at that level to make it so personal. So I'll just repeat the exact sentence that MarkBot said. It said, "Don't prove you know who I am.
Yeah.
Prove you know something I do not."
Yeah. So I'd say comment on that in two ways. First
Mhm.
of all, I mean, if you're a SaaS company and you've got a new product that you're launching, do you really need to mass market it, or do you need 10 important people to adopt it? Or do you need people that can be advocates for you to help you and understand. So that would be one thing. Now, if you are getting into the mass marketing of it, I mean, what you have to do is be very clear. And this kind of gets into, tell me something that I don't know. You've got to, you've got to, if the business proposition is, if the, what's keeping me up at night, right? That's an email I'm going to open up. So let's say, what's keeping people up at night is what AI platform do I commit to? Because they change every week and one's trying to beat the other and one's doing this and one's doing that. So, I mean, if you're in an enterprise, how do you know what to do? That's keeping people up at night, right? So if I had an email message that said, here's the solution to constant churn and picking a solution in I would open that email because that is keeping people up at night. And if I don't really know you, if I haven't heard of you or your company, if I get something from an email from someone from NVIDIA and I don't know them, I'm still going to open it, right? Because I've heard of the company, I respect the company, but if I haven't heard of you, I haven't heard of your company, you better lay it out very plainly. This is the problem that you solve for me. And if it isn't exactly what I'm thinking, then I'm not even going to open it.
Got that, Mark. Very cool. In your conversation, you just mentioned about tools competing for your attention. For example, once ChatGPT was a favorite tool, then Claude became more powerful. People started reducing their ChatGPT subscriptions and started adopting Claude and all. That brings me to another AI tool in the market, which had its viral moment. That is Cursor. You must have heard of Cursor, Mark. So an 8-year-old filmed himself coding and it spread like anything. But to get that kind of user generated content calls for a really solid product. And not every product is as solid to have this kind of content. But for AI visibility, user generated content can be incredibly good. Like,
Yeah.
so, can there be a way for B2B SaaS brands to curate this user generated content?
What do you mean by curate? You mean create or curate user generated content?
So, let me add another example here. There is this B2B SaaS called Storylane. So, what it helps with is their prime audiences, marketers.
Yeah.
Marketers can create interactive demos with their product. So they launched a competition on LinkedIn. That is, you showcase the demo videos you have created using the Storylane, and the person who wins will get a trip to Italy. Now, because they launched that competition, they didn't just get user generated content, users actually showcased their product
Yes.
and it got attention of right people.
Yeah.
So that is one way, like launching challenges or competitions on
Yeah, so
social
that's
media as
really
well.
about it's really about generating user-generated content. When you say curating, to me, that means like collecting.
Uh,
What you're trying to do is you're trying to get people to generate it. Well, I mean, I think there is a way to do this. I think there is a way to do this. I think it's right in front of everybody's nose, but very few companies are doing it. And I wrote a whole book about this, about brand community. I wrote a book called Belonging to the Brand, Why Community is the Last Great Marketing Strategy. So here's what we're trying to do in marketing, right? There's two different types of marketing. One is performance marketing. So you're working on advertising, you're working on SEO, and then you're working on, maybe you're working with influencers. Then you're working on brand marketing. Does your company mean something to me? Does it stand for something, right? So, I mean, when I say NVIDIA, some image pops in your head. If I say Claude, some idea about that company pops into your head. If I say Coca-Cola, if I said, hey, Coca-Cola is building a hotel in Singapore. Can you imagine what it would look like? When you open the door, what do you see? What do you hear? That's the emotional expectation of a brand. And that's what differentiates you and separates you from your competition over the long term. So performance marketing might be short term, top of funnel. Brand marketing is, how are we going to assure this growth over time? How are we going to separate ourselves from our competitors because we mean something? Now, so how do we do this? Okay, well, maybe we have advertising, but who really believes advertising anymore? Who sees advertising anymore? Digital advertising is becoming more and more expensive. And so we put something on social media. Well, again, does anybody see it? Does anybody believe it? What if people subscribe to our content? Now we're getting somewhere, because when people opt in to your YouTube channel or your blog or your podcast, they're raising their hand in a virtual way saying, I believe in you. I want to know more. I want to learn more. So you've established that emotional connection. And that's where most companies stop. The greatest emotional connection occurs in communities. And there are massive, massive B2B software companies that have incredible, just tens of thousands of people in their communities. And yet most companies really ignore this opportunity. That is a great place for organic, authentic, user-generated content. Because if you're creating activities and you're introducing ideas in this community, people take it outside the community and they talk about it. So, I have a community for marketers, right? And people post about this community every single week on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on wherever, because things are happening in this community that they're exciting them, and they're collaborating and they're learning, and we're having Zoom calls together. People are taking pictures of the Zoom call and say, oh, you wouldn't believe what we just did in this community today, right? Because I'm creating something so interesting, so worthy, so valuable that people can't wait to share it with other people. So I, I'll never have to worry about marketing my community. It's marketing itself, because the people in the community are so excited about, what we're doing. And that is the best way, I think, to create UGC.
Great answer, Mark. Mark, I feel I'm just guessing, like when you created a community, Mark was already a brand in itself.
Right.
Like, so for you, like the moment you say that you're opening a community, marketers would jump on to join that community, right?
Mhm. A few.
So you have written 11 books, Mark. You teach at a university. I'm sure many will. What I'm saying is, let's say a B2B SaaS brand, which is not very old yet and which has not created a name for themselves yet. How do they go about getting their first 20, 30, 40 members uh, in the community, and how do they keep them engaged?
Well, actually, community for startups. There's research in my book that shows this is the number one marketing strategy for tech startups. 80% of tech startups start with community as their brand strategy. Something like, I think the number is like 35% say the success of their brand community is the number one reason they're going to succeed as a company. That's it. More important than the product, it's the community. Why? Because when you're a startup, you need beta testers, you need ideas, you need support, you need advocacy, you need funding, right? Now, this isn't a community of 10,000 people. It could be a community of 5. It could be a community of 10. I think maybe the largest community in the world is Twitch. Twitch,
The-
Twitch started with 5 people. Twitch was a video sharing platform,
right.
and it started with 5 people who said, you know what? I want to use this so people can watch me play video games. And the founder said, that's crazy. Who would want to watch people play video games? And these 5 people said, give us a chance. And they started this community, and that's what became Twitch. So, number one, it's already, for small companies, it's already what people are doing today. Number two, you only need a few people to start a community. It's your best fans, your best customers. Now, you do bring up an interesting point where you said, "Hey, look, everybody knew you. That's why they want to join your community." It's not really about fame, it's about trust. That's why people join you. Do they trust you? Do they know you? If you start a company and you have 5 people that respond to your newsletter, respond to your blog, respond to your things on LinkedIn, saying, wow, this is great. I can't wait to try it. Why not reach out to those people and say, hey, I'm creating this little community. Do you want to be the first members? They'll probably say yes, and then give them a reason to come every week or even every day. I visit my community multiple times a day because it's so interesting. There's so many interesting things that are going on. We have people from all over the world in my community, including Singapore. I think
Wonderful.
there's people from, I think 17 countries that are in my community so far. Yeah.
I'm going to join it today,
You
Mark.
should
I
join.
did not know about it. Got your point, Mark, that it has to be about earning the trust.
Yeah.
And regarding the Twitch thing,
If
you
you don't have trust, you don't have a brand. You've got to have trust for people to give you money. So, I mean, you've got to have trust. And if people trust you, that's the foundation for a community.
right, right. Regarding the Twitch thing you mentioned, Mark, so I have two kids. One is 15, one is 8, and they love watching those videos where other gamers are playing and just recording a commentary along.
Right.
And I honestly I find it dumb, but and I have tried to stop them many a times, but they
Yeah.
say, "Mama, it's really fun."
Yeah.
And they can watch hours and hours together of those. Mark, what do you think makes it interesting for them? Like, why do they want to watch that?
You are asking the wrong person. Uh, I think my total my total time on Twitch is probably about 3 minutes. So I have consulted to so many different industries. I've worked in hospitality, pharmaceutical, automotive, high tech, and there's only 2 industries I've avoided, I've turned down. And one is luxury because I don't want anybody to judge me by, how expensive my shoes are. That's just not me. And the other one I've avoided is gaming. And the reason is because that is just a different culture. It's a different world I do not understand. It's a different language I do not speak. And I love it. I think it's wonderful, but it's not me. I think the rules of engagement are different in luxury, and I think they're different in gaming. And so why do people watch those games? I don't know.
Got it, Mark, got it. Now that we are on the topic of videos, I have something about videos to ask you. So you might have seen those AI avatars that people are using to create videos. In fact, we have also used it for our clients. And then on the other side, there are companies like Ramp. What they did was they hired this actor from The Office, Kevin. They locked him in a glass box where he had to do some sort of reconciling. And the idea was to amplify the pain of accountants so that they feel that they need a software like RAM.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that was audacious.
Right.
It, right.
And that generated a ton of user generated content.
Yes, yes, it did. Now, for any brand, how do they decide what is the right video strategy for them?
Boy, that's a kind of a difficult question. And I hesitate really being prescriptive about that because there's really no sort of universal cookie cutter answer. I think you need to start with strategy. Too many people today are creating videos because they're afraid not to. And so they're creating random acts of content. They see their competitors do it and they need to do something, right? And so you have to start with strategy. You have to start about what is the problem we solve for people? What is the problem? How do we uniquely solve it? Where are our customers? How do we connect with them? What is the best way to reach them? And it might be video. Maybe it's not. Now, if you talk about video, well, is that a TikTok video or is that a YouTube video? Or is that a video about a technical paper? It can be anywhere. So I think it really needs to start with strategy. And I also think you need to look at that audacious framework because the bar for interesting in many industries is very low. So if your competitors are creating video, and look what they're doing, then read the Audacious book and think, okay, this is where our industry is. How do we disrupt this, even in a little way? And you don't know what's going to happen. There's an example in the book. It's not B2B, but it just comes to mind about this. There's this American cookie brand called Nutter Butter, and it's not a very well known brand. It's a peanut butter cookie. Maybe children got in their lunch when they were going to school, but then everybody forgot about it. And they've created these videos on TikTok that are literally, it's like an LSD trip. It's like you're on some mind expanding drug. It's random and, it's just crazy. And you look at this thing and you think, how in the world can this thing sell cookies? And they have tripled their sales in 1 year. They've tripled their sales. And part of it is people, they're just hungry for something new. Now that's crazy new, but I mean, just if it's a little bit different than almost every industry, it's a pandemic of dull. It's just they just do the same thing year after year after year after year after year, because that's what gets approved by the legal department, or that doesn't upset people or whatever. So, I mean, so start with your business strategy, right? And make an intentional decision. Do you really need video? Maybe you need a podcast. If it's highly technical, maybe you need a blog with use cases, right? So be intentional, be strategic, and then look at the Audacious framework to say, okay, how do we really win this thing?
Got that, Mark. The very interesting thing you mentioned, that look at the competitors, and you might see that many of them might be doing some dull stuff and the bar for interesting is really low. And I think there MarkBot can be really helpful. If we just tell the competitor and what it is doing, I'm sure it can give us some amazing ideas
Yeah,
to cut through that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good
I
way to
have
use it.
another interesting story for you, Mark. So, yesterday I was walking at the harbor, and there was this lady who was selling eye pictures as art. So, what
Yeah,
happens is they capture shopper's iris,
yeah,
and with that they create a beautiful art and they
right.
sell it. Now she said it's free to try, and my son went ahead and tried it, and the moment picture was taken, she asked for the name, email address, and our country of living, etc. Now whether she will be able to sell to us or not, she captured the lead, right? Now, if we bring that reference in B2B SaaS, companies often have templates, forms, PDFs as downloadables to capture leads. But now people can create any sort of template, any sort of form, and learn all that from AI tools. They don't really need to download anything from the website. So, how should B2B SaaS brands think about these lead magnets now?
Well, so I have a very strong opinion on this, and this will have to be our last question because I have
Sure,
another
absolutely.
meeting coming up here. But so I know there's a lot of interest in companies that say, look, we produce this lead magnet, we produce this white paper, and we want people to give us their email address before they get this paper. And I think that is a huge mistake. I think you should never gate your content. And the math works like this. So if someone's interested in your content and they see, we want to give you your email, you have to give us our email address, sometimes even a phone number before you get this content. About 90% of the people leave because they don't trust you. They know they've become a lead, and they're going to be put into a lead nurturing program, which is just a pretty way of saying, we're going to annoy you until you block us. And when they get the first email from you, the first thing they're going to do is unsubscribe. So what have you done? You've chased away 90% of your leads. The 10% that signed up, they all left with the first email. What have you done? So you have to unleash the content. You need to remove every obstacle and every barrier, and you need to give it away. And then the last page, or in the front page in the introduction, you say, this content is brought to you by XYZ company. And to learn more, visit us here, or click here, or whatever you want to do. But gated content is sort of politically correct and mathematically a disaster.
I love this.
I'm totally against it.
Politically correct and mathematically a disaster. I have
Right.
seen this pattern in your talks, Mark, where you bring contrasting things and it becomes so interesting to hear those words from you. I have had amazing time talking to you and hope, like the way I discovered you via podcast, many B2B SaaS marketers are going to discover you and Audacious via this podcast. And I wish you all the very best for it becoming a bestseller. And Mark, I know we are short on time. Okay, great, great. And I'll join the community today and I'll
Okay.
stay in touch. Thanks a lot, Mark. Have a
Thank
good day.
you.
Yeah, bye bye.